Senators and member of the Judiciary Committee, thank you. My name is Brian Jorde, J-O-R-D-E, of Omaha, Nebraska, lawyer with Domina Law. It's important to remember that the purposes of eminent domain is to transfer property from private ownership into the hands of another entity, typically the government, for public use. It is not designed to get the public entity or the condemnor the cheapest price for the property. And although this bill is not specifically related to the TransCanada issues, since they've been brought up, the issues as to the misrepresentation and the threat language really goes more to the negotiations between the condemnor and the private party. If you approach a widower in the Sandhills and basically say, well, if you don't agree, we're going to take your land anyway, that's a pretty quick way to get to a negotiated price that is clearly in the best interest of the condemnor and not the condemnee, without them knowing they actually have rights to hire counsel, to say no, to not even respond to the would-be acquirer, condemnor, and to go through the eminent domain process, also the condemnation proceedings in county court, and then maybe appeal. So I think this bill is valuable in many ways, but it also is valuable in balancing the playing field from the condemnor, which has done this many times, as to the individual citizen who is completely taken aback and thinking, my goodness, these people are going to take my land. That's a pretty traumatic experience, and I agree, if a lawyer would have received what has been known as the TransCanada letters, I looked at it and had the same feeling as Senator Lathrop. But the point is, on these first negotiations and these first notices, I don't see why anyone would be opposed as to putting in more transparency in the process of what the landowner's rights are. The misrepresentation language is key. I guess you'd only be against that if somehow you were going to try to use that in the negotiation process. Perhaps the utilities will say, well, now we don't know what we can say. But what you can say is, we have Project XYZ. We believe it might be granted approval, and if so, we might be proceeding to acquire your property through the rights that we have under the eminent domain statutes. But to say we will take your land if you don't sign this easement, if you don't agree with us, that's going way far afield from the from what the public policy would have and from what the nature of these laws are, to be on an equal and balanced playing field and not against the would-be seller or the landowner who simply doesn't know their rights. So I'm in full support of this bill and all provisions, including the penalty provision. A Class 4 misdemeanor is a $500 maximum fine, $100 minimum, and so it's really not that severe in these instances. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to tackle them.
Any questions, Gary? I don't. Thanks, Gary. I'm sorry.
Thank you.